Hello.
Hello.
Um, Tell us a little bit about the history of the European Theatre Group.
So it started about 60 years ago when Sir Derek Jacobi and Trevor Nunn hired two fruit vans and travelled around Switzerland and schools in Switzerland performing Romeo and Juliet. And it was just something they decided to do in their winter, but it stuck. And yeah, now it's in its 60th year, performing to schools and universities around Europe. One of the main focuses of the tour is the educational aspect that we can do alongside it. So we have a dedicated education officer on the team whose job is to create an education pack over the summer with various sort of activities about the themes of the play and all sorts of different things, which we send out to the schools the teachers can use and do activities with the pupils. But then also when we get there, we'll do performance-based workshops. So getting the text up for people to act out scenes between Beatrice and Benedict and all sorts of things, and get them to appreciate that Shakespeare was made to be performed.
And this year you were performing Much Ado About Nothing. Yes. Why did you pick that play?
The short answer is it was one of the two on the shortlist when they opened applications for director, but I didn't really know anything about the tour, but all I saw was that there was a chance to apply for Much Ado, and it's my favourite of the Shakespeare comedies. I studied it at school, and I just thought, I'll write in just to get a bit of feedback, just have a practice applying for something like this. And then somehow I got it, and found myself, okay, I've got to actually do the show now. What is it about this show that I like? I need to focus on. And so for me, it's one of the, so as I said, it's Shakespearean comedy, but that by definition doesn't mean funny ha-ha. It just means that the play's going to end in a marriage, in Shakespearean terms anyway. But one of the added benefits of Much Ado, particularly for our tour audiences, is that it's very funny. There's so many funny things going on in the play that that's immediately in our back pocket for sort of engaging with the different audiences, that we could always rely on that. But at the same time, in Much Ado's case, there's a sort of an illegitimate brother to the prince whose field neglected his whole life, and starts to create this just malicious accusation for no reason that that the daughter of the duke has been sleeping with a man before her wedding day, a different man, and then this gets announced on the wedding day itself. The father of this girl disowns her, leaves her to die upon just hearing these accusations with no proof whatsoever. And I always felt that bit seemed to not really get enough attention. I felt Leonato, the character, got off the hook quite a bit. So that was in my head as something I wanted to make sure I didn't miss, and particularly for sort of the younger audiences we were going to. I wanted them to be angry at Leonato. I wanted them to connect with those sort of dynamics in the play.
How did the different locations affect the way that you performed the play?
One night we'd be performing in a village hall to a mix of ages for parents and children together. It was very sort of town hall, very field. And the next day we were performing in a high school. And in that performance in Bern, as it goes, the show almost became a bit of a pantomime, because I think the actors were getting a bit frustrated that they weren't getting the audio response, the vocal response they'd had beforehand. And so our lead actor, Benedict, is very good with the crowd, and so he started to notice that they were enjoying sort of the more comic, more pantomime-y type jokes. And so I think the whole crew latched onto that and started changing their performances. And by the end it was such an enjoyable show for the audience. You could tell they were really loving it. They started clapping people as they were exiting off stage in the way you would do a pantomime. And so while that was great and seeing them engage with it, at the end I was really conflicted, because I thought, well, yes, these audiences have had such a great time, but it's not the Much Ado I wanted to set out to do. So it has such a huge effect, and I didn't realise quite how much it would be, but in the different tour audiences would have on a show. But I think, as we went along and we were picking up from these different audiences what the play was meaning to different people and what they were getting out of it, I think we started to achieve a good medium of getting that spark that we had in Bern with the audience clearly enjoying themselves, but also, for example, when we performed in, of all places, a Jesuit monastery for a university audience, that they were getting to grips with the darker things going on, and so achieving that balance that whenever we did Much Ado Somewhere, they could get a bit of both. Was really interesting to develop as the tour went on.
And was there somewhere where you had a particular favourite performance?
Oh, my favourite would probably be Geneva. In fact, I think it was probably the performance I was dreading the most, which was the 9:30 a.m. show in a school to 16 to 18-year-olds. And when I saw that the schedule once before, I was like, oh God, how are we going to do that? But remarkably, I think it became my favourite of the tour, and certainly what I thought was the best of the tour, because it can be a blessing and a curse for the director to be in the audience of a show, because you can see an audience love it, and you feel so happy and content that you've kind of created that show with all these people. And also, like, it could go completely wrong if you see the audience are chattering through, or they're not really getting the laughs. It can be so infuriating. But what was so special about that morning show in Geneva, there was a girl in the row in front of me who happened to catch my attention, who I could just notice was responding perfectly to every line, or at least I say perfect response. It was exactly what I wanted an audience to think at that moment. She was laughing when at all the right places. I could tell she was challenging the more difficult things going on and the darker things. I could just see her response to every line and the way she'd kind of interact with her friends about it. I mean, then just to top it off, at the end of that show, there was a boy in the row behind me who I heard whisper to his friend, "This is so cool." And just hearing that, I kind of just felt that I'd done my job. Yeah, I was a very proud guy that day.
Good. All right. Thank you very much.